Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dyson Leadership Podcast. If you missed our episode last week, then I'm going to explain why I'm sitting here by myself and I don't have a guest like normal. A couple weeks ago, from the time of this podcast airing, was the hurricane that came up through the Gulf and impacted a lot of southern United States locations, including where I live, where I was without power internet for a few days. Had to reschedule a lot of podcast interviews, wasn't able to upload an episode for a week, just a lot of impacts. And so what I decided to do was, once I had power internet, obviously, to be able to record and do this, to record a couple episodes specifically on self-leadership. So if you missed last week's episode, go back, watch that episode, listen to that episode, then come back to this one, kind of consider it a part one, part two, because we're talking about the impacts of self-leadership. Last week, we talked about things like determining your core values and being able to craft a personal mission and vision statement and some different thoughts around those types of things. For this week, we're going to be talking about a few other aspects. So I just want to dive right in and go ahead and cover these three topics. And then starting next week, you won't have to look at just me. I'll have guests back on the podcast like normal. But for the first point for today, the topic is cultivating a growth mindset. So you know your core values, you've maybe looked at the mission, vision, what you want to achieve, what you want to do. Well, the next thing in a self-leadership mindset, what you need most is a growth mindset. Because if you are not growing, you are not developing, you're not trying to improve in some way, then you're just stagnant. You're not going to be able to add value and really impact others. If I am a leadership trainer, coach, and I'm trying to have a great impact on people, but I don't invest in myself, I don't learn anything new, I'm just very stagnant in what I know and what I learn, what value am I going to add to you? It's not going to be much, I'll go ahead and tell you. So one of the things that gets a lot of people stuck is when they encounter failure or obstacles. So in failure and obstacles, a lot of people just get stuck. They run into some kind of situation and it's, oh, I failed. This project didn't go according to plan, or this person didn't listen to my leadership or respect my leadership in this way. And we just shut down and stop. And I'm guilty of doing this in the past, as I'm sure any of you listening probably are as well. We sometimes just get stuck. And so what we need to do when we encounter failure, when we encounter something that's in this type of struggle that we may face, is to look at it not as a failure, not as a setback, not as a problem in that context, but look at it as a learning and a growth opportunity. If you begin to look at your situations, these problems that do come up, because let's be real, they all come up. But you can look at them and say, what can I learn? What can I grow in? What did this failure, what did this situation, what did this problem teach me that I can go and be better next time? So if you go back to my episode where I interviewed John Richardson, that's another great example. We even talked about it back and forth, a pre and post review of situations or implementation of projects, where you can look at things before they happen. What do you hope to achieve? What do you hope goes into effect? What do you want to grow and develop into? You implement it, you try it, you put it forward, and then you look at it after things are said and done. Did it work? Did it not? Are there other things you need to adjust or kind of pivot on to make it better? As a leader, what do you need to do to have that level of growth coming out of those situations? The second thing that I want you to do for a growth mindset is overcoming a fixed mindset. And you say, okay, Nick, we're talking about getting a growth mindset and overcoming a fixed mindset. This is a lot of mindset stuff. It is, but bear with me. I'm going to explain. A fixed mindset is going to be where you're looking at situations and it's strictly, this is how I have to do this, or this is always what we've done in the past. And so I need to or have to do it this way again. It's that fixed mindset where there is no other options or alternatives. It's just brute force straight through the same way every single time. Something I was taught in the past when it comes to lean, Six Sigma, or process improvement is that idea of questioning or the concept of five whys. You ask five whys in a situation. It could start, why do we do it this way? And you get an explanation. Well, why is that? And you get an explanation. Well, then why is that? You keep digging down deeper and deeper to understand, because it's a fixed mindset if you just start with, we've always done it this way, so I just have to keep doing it this way. Or I've always just handled things in this type of situation. Well, great. What if there's a better way to handle that type of situation? Let's take difficult conversations. Maybe you're a leader, maybe you're a manager who doesn't like or you don't perform well in difficult conversations. Why don't you? What's the issue that you are facing? You may have something come in mind. You're trying to explain or reason in your mind why that's the case. Okay. So what typically goes wrong? How can you improve it? What can you change? How can you approach those situations differently? That is overcoming that fixed mindset. It's not just the mindset of, I'm not good at this, or I struggle in these areas. Great. What are the options? Where can we learn? Where can we grow? What can we do different? One of the most common excuses that I hear, I'll just call it outright, it's excuses, is people who say they're not good at technology. Why are you not good at technology? And typically it goes to, they've not had to use it a whole lot. They're not trained on it. They're not experienced in it. Well, great. Who can show you things? Because if you go intentionally want to learn, you're intending to learn, you want to figure out how to do something, there's a lot of things with technology you can learn. But there's a lot of people get stuck at that very start and they just say, I am not good at using technology. That is a fixed mindset. They stop at that point. They don't proceed any further. And so guess what? They don't learn. They don't grow. That's where it ends. So let's look at a few other fixed mindsets. Let's think about this for a second. I am not good at public speaking. So a lot of people have that fixed mindset. Or I am not good in leadership roles. Well, I hope that's not you listening to a leadership podcast. If that is you listening to a leadership podcast, great. Keep watching, subscribe. This is definitely for you. But there are some people that have that kind of fixed mindset. There are some people that say, I'm not good with certain types of people, or I can't do these certain types of tasks or activities. Why not? What do you need to learn? What do you need to grow in to be able to? I'm a firm believer that leadership skills can be learned. You can have leadership impact regardless of your title or position. You can have it as an entry-level employee. You can have influence and impact over your coworkers. That is leadership impact. But not everybody's just born a leader. Most people, yeah, they may have some characteristics or traits that make them inherently or that make them naturally a little bit more inclined to leadership type of roles. But that doesn't mean they are naturally born a leader and are just going to be a leader. They have to hone those skills. They have to work on those skills. They have to grow in those skills. You know, for me, I didn't just wake up as a kid and say, I'm going to go be a leader and instantly people follow me and listen. The things that I come on this podcast and share, the things that I teach in training and development and leadership sessions, there's a lot of people question. They look at me and say, well, you're young. What experience do you have? What do you have to pull from? I've been learning and growing and studying leadership for over 15 years. Yeah, it's been that long. So what you're getting is not somebody that just a year or two ago decided, oh, hey, I'm going to do this leadership training thing. You guys are getting 15 years of my life that I've read and studied business and all of these things to come and share and teach other people. That's a lot of things that I've learned, a lot of books that I've read, a lot of podcasts I've listened to, a lot of training sessions I've been in, and a lot of practical experience in a lot of different settings that I'm pulling from to share with people. But if I had the fixed mindset of what some people want to project on me, that because I look young or because maybe I don't have as much professional experience as somebody else, that I can't be in leadership training. If I had that fixed mindset, I wouldn't continue to try to grow and become a better leader. But instead, I'm constantly reading leadership and personal development books. I'm constantly listening to new podcasts, new ideas. And what I'm listening for are things that I can share with people that I train and I work with, things that I can share on this podcast with you, but more importantly, things that I can implement in my career, my business, my work, interacting with other people. What can I do to implement in leading, whether it be at my church or with my family? There are so many aspects of leadership all throughout life, more than just the job title that you have that most people think. But a lot of people have that fixed mindset that it's only about the job title, and it's not. So, what fixed mindset do you have, podcast listener, that you need to break out of? What fixed mindset do you have that you need to change and start looking at it from a different perspective? Only you can answer that. I can't tell you what your fixed mindset is, but I guarantee you have at least one. You probably have already thought about it. If not, try to think about it. Think about what kind of fixed mindset you have that you need to break out of. The last thing that I have for you in this podcast episode in regards to cultivating this growth mindset is seek feedback from others, specifically constructive feedback. Because if you go to somebody that is just absolutely negative, pessimistic, they are going to give you the worst case scenario at absolutely everything. Don't go ask that person for feedback. Please, for just everything, don't go ask that person. Find somebody that will give you good, constructive, honest feedback. Things that will help you become better, not tear you down. It's going to be hard to get constructive feedback. You may go and ask somebody and they say, I really see you struggle in these areas. You don't always do well. And that may hurt. You may think you're good in those areas and they call you out and say you are not as good as you think you are. That may hurt. It may not be what you want to hear. But find somebody that can give you that information, that feedback constructively. They can say, I know, from my perspective, I don't really think you're that great in these areas. Here's a couple ideas you could implement to improve. That's where you might find a mentor, a leadership, personal development coach, a life coach, somebody that can work with you on these things to help you become better in these areas. But seek out that feedback. Here's one that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people struggle with this, is their negative self-talk. I'm just not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be a good enough manager. I'm never going to be able to get that promotion. I'm just not smart enough. I don't have the right education to do that. All of that negative self-talk, and you're projecting, putting that on yourself, beating yourself up in those ways. Let's break out of that negative self-talk. Here's what I want you to do. This is a practical application. You can go and do this. It's not going to be pleasant, I guarantee you, but it'll help you break out of some of this negative self-talk. You may think those are only thoughts in your head. They never come out. Nobody knows you think those things. You may think that, but I challenge you, find your spouse, a partner, a close family member, somebody that you know that is close to you, that works with you on a regular basis. Could even be a coworker. Find somebody that sees you, interacts with you on a regular basis. And then what I want you to do is ask them to write down anytime they hear you make a negative comment or statement about yourself. It's that simple. That in itself is very humbling, because you will realize if you have a lot of negative self-talk, those things come out around other people. Because when you're having a bad day, you may not lash out at somebody else, but you may criticize yourself. You may be just tired. You didn't sleep well the night before. The kids kept you up, the dog kept you up, whatever the case may be. And you get to work the next day. Maybe you make a mistake, and instead of just saying, yeah, I made a mistake, I'll make it right, you just criticize yourself, beat yourself down, and you're negative to yourself. But ask that person, write down, what do you say negative about yourself over the course of maybe a week, maybe a couple weeks if it's not like a regular daily time that you're around this person. Give it enough time that you have a good sample size to work on. And then have them give you that piece of paper, or give you a list of what they heard and what you said. You will find that your negative self-talk comes out in your comments, whether you realize it or not. The reason I know that is I've done it. I've been a person that struggled with negative self-talk. I had someone close to me, my wife, write down and list all of these things. And what I did is I did a thought audit on myself. I wrote down the things that were in my head, the thoughts that I was having, the negative things that I was telling myself, compared to her list. And a lot of the things that I was saying were coming out. Maybe not an exact verbatim word for word, but they were coming out. So leaders or somebody that's interested in personal development, evaluate your self-talk, evaluate what's going on. Find somebody that can work with you, whatever area. It may not be self-talk. It may be something else. Find somebody that can give you some constructive criticism, but can give you encouragement or ideas, something to think outside of the box to improve on those, and take that, learn from it, apply it to a growth mindset. There are a lot of people in this world, they do not take the initiative to grow or to develop or to learn something new. They very much just go through the routine day after day, day in and day out, and they don't grow. So I want to ask you, what are you doing to grow? What are you doing to have a growth mindset in your life? If you're interested in having a personal development coach, a leadership coach, reach out to somebody like myself or another coach maybe in your area. Work with them to grow and to develop. Find ways to grow yourself. Read books, listen to podcasts, something, because you need to grow yourself to be able to grow others. If you are not learning and growing yourself, you will not be able to teach and help others reach their potential. That's the reason this growth mindset is so important. And that's the reason self-leadership is so important. You lead yourself to better lead others. You grow yourself to grow others. You impact yourself to impact others. It starts with you, leader. So what are you doing to grow and develop? I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Like I said, starting again next week, I'll have guests back on the podcast. They'll be joining me again. So the episodes are going to go right back to normal. If you enjoyed this episode, maybe you learned something, maybe you got some kind of challenge out of it, send it to a friend, send it to a coworker. Be sure to subscribe. If you are willing, please leave us a rating wherever you are consuming the podcast, whether that's audio, video. Subscribe, leave a like, a rating, something to help us out. Help us reach more people. Share it to your social media. Tag me when you share it. I'll give you a shout out. But definitely help us reach more people, because we need leaders to grow and become better so that they can go and multiply that impact to others, and we can improve the leadership culture in our communities, our country, our world, whatever aspect of your life we need to improve the leadership in. Thank you for tuning in for the Dyson Leadership Podcast. Join me again next week for another episode.